John kicks off today's game by losing 2 life and having Stomping Grounds enter untapped, followed by a delighted halfling. Tom plays a swamp for his turn, while Extra plays a smoldering marsh for his. Lastly, Sam plays a forest, followed up by a soul ring. John takes his second turn, playing a mountain and casting a cultivate, getting a tapped forest into play and another forest into hand. He then passes to Tom. Tom plays a swamp and taps 2 for a Night's Whisper, drawing 2 and losing 2 life, then hands it to Extra. Extra repeats his turn 1 by playing a command tower and passing. Sam starts off with a Wood Elves, putting Stomping Ground into play untapped and losing 2 life, followed by an untapped Sacred Foundry for which he also loses 2 life, and finally a Gyre Sage. The turn then goes back to John. John first plays a forest, he then casts Nature's Lore for another forest, and casts his commander, Anzrag, the Quake-Mole. John then passes to Tom. Tom plays a swamp for turn, then casts Feed the Swarm on Anzrag, destroying him and losing 4 life in the process. He passes to Extra. Extra repeats his turn again, playing a mountain and passing to Sam. Sam first casts Elvish War Master. This triggers Gyre Sage, giving itself a +1/+1 counter. He then casts his commander, Voja, Jaws of the Conclave, again triggering Gyre Sage for another counter. He then plays a Temple Garden tapped, still losing 2 life due to him forgetting that Gyre Sage only makes 1 mana, making him 1 short when casting his commander. After that, he attacks John with Wood Elves and passes. John takes a note from Extra's book and simply plays a mountain and passes to Tom. Tom plays a swamp for turn, followed by his commander, Massacre Girl, Known Killer. He passes, and on end of turn, Extra casts Zap on Wood Elves, killing it and drawing a card. Extra sticks to his plan and repeats the same mountain pass strategy from previous turns. Sam starts his turn by going to combat, where he's met by a Beast Within from John, targeting Voja and paying for ward. Sam then continues his assault, attacking John with War Master. After combat, he recasts his commander Voja, Jaws of the Conclave, triggering Gyre Sage for a +1/+1 counter, and passing the turn. John plays a Rockfall Veil for turn, and also recasts his commander, Anzrag, the Quake-Mole. With nothing else, he passes the turn. Tom plays an Ifnir Deadlands, and casts Skin Render, triggering its effect, targeting Sam's War Master. War Master dies, which triggers Massacre Girl to draw a card. He then attacks Extra with Massacre Girl, and passes, with Extra casting Unexpected Windfall on his end of turn, discarding a card, while drawing 2 new cards and making 2 treasures. On his turn, Extra plays a mountain. He then casts Mind Stone, followed by Harmonic Prodigy, before passing the turn over to Sam. Sam starts his turn by casting a Beast Whisperer. He then goes to combat, attacking Tom with Voja and the Beast token. Voja triggers, giving each creature 2 counters and drawing 1 card. After combat, he casts Arwen, Weaver of Hope, triggering Whisperer to draw, followed by Incubation Druid, triggering both Whisper and Arwen, who mistakenly gives 2 counters instead of 1. Then Masked Vandal, again triggering Whisper and Arwen, while his own effect exiles Extra's Mind Stone. He then plays a forest, and finishes it off with an Arbor Elf, triggering Whisper and Arwen yet again. John moves to his turn, and plays a forest. He then casts Native of the Dire Hunt, triggering its effect at the start of combat, paying 3 mana to double Anzrag's power, and making it so he has to be locked. Anzrag attacks Extra, and is blocked by his Prodigy, triggering Native to draw, and Anzrag to untap his creatures and have another combat. He decides not to attack again, and simply passes the turn to Tom. On his turn, Tom casts Incremental Blight on Arwen, Incubation Druid, and Arbor Elf, giving them 1 through 3 -1/-1 counters respectively. This triggers Massacre Girl 2 times, allowing Tom to draw 2 cards. He then passes, and still on his end step, extra cast Demand Answers, discarding a card and drawing 2 new ones. Extra plays a mountain for turn. He then casts his commander, Judith, Carnage Connoisseur. He follows it up with Overmaster, triggering Judith to make a 2/2 red imp. He then casts a Braid, targeting Voja, triggering Judith to give a Braid Death Touch and Lifelink, as well as Voja's Ward, which Extra ignores due to Overmaster making a Braid uncounterable. A Braid then resolves, killing Voja and gaining extra 3 life. The turn then moves to Sam. Sam again recasts his commander Voja, triggering Whisper to draw, this time hoping it sticks around for a bit longer. He then plays a Battlefield Forge and attacks John with a Beast. Before passing, John plays a Forest for turn, then casts Indomitable Might on Anzrag. He goes to combat, triggering Neith, and paying the 3 to target Anzrag. John then attacks Extra with Anzrag, who has no choice but to block with both of his creatures. This triggers Neith to draw, and Anzrag to untap his creatures and have another combat. He also decides to ignore blocks with Indomitable Might in order to kill Extra with 22 commander damage. At the start of the second combat, he again pays for Neith's trigger on Anzrag and has him attack Sam this time. In response, Sam casts Nightpack Ambusher, triggering Whisper to try and find an out. He finds nothing and decides to block Anzrag with all of his creatures, again triggering Neith and Anzrag. John again chooses to ignore blocks with Indomitable Might, killing Sam with 44 commander damage. After combat, John casts Sakura Tribe Elder and passes the turn to Tom. Tom plays a Morbid Opportunist, to which John responds by sacrificing Sakura, finding a tapped forest. Once that is done, Tom attacks John with Massacre Girl and passes the turn. On his turn, John plays a mountain and casts Bear Umbra, enchanting Delighted Halfling, followed by Toski, Bearer of Secrets. He then casts Kadama's Reach, putting a forest into play tapped, and the mountain to hand. After that, he goes to combat, but is stopped by Tom and his Grasp of Darkness, killing Halfling and triggering both Massacre Girl and Opportunist to draw a total of 2 cards. With all of that out of the way, John sadly passes to Tom. Tom plays a Swamp and casts Massacre Worm, triggering its effect and giving John's creatures -2/-2. Toski dies, which triggers Massacre Worm to make John lose 2 life, Massacre Girl and Opportunist to draw 2 cards. Tom then attacks John with all his available attackers and passes. John plays a mountain for turn, then recasts Anzrag, the Quake-Mole, followed by Ilharg, the Raiseboar. The turn then moves to Tom. Tom starts by playing Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. He then casts Liliana of the Dark Realms, immediately using her -3 in order to give Angraz -7/-7, killing him and triggering Massacre Girl, Opportunist, and Worm. He then casts the adventure part of Virtue of Persistence on Neith, again triggering Massacre Girl and Worm, while gaining 2 life. Tom then goes to combat, attacking John with all of his creatures. John blocks Skinrender with Ilharg, and in response, Tom casts Dismember, paying 4 life, targeting Ilharg. Once that resolves, and combat damage is dealt, Massacre Worm once again triggers, draining the last point of John's life, leaving Tom the victor.